Dear God, we thank you for this new day and allowing all of us to arrive here safely. We lift up to you this school year, especially the class of 2025, as they embark on a new journey. Guide their minds and hearts during this academic season to achieve your plan for them. Continue to keep us all safe during these troubling times from anything that may harm us, and may everything we say and do be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
Thank you, Rose. When you came in tonight, you received our packet of information. For those of you watching online, we'll have these available in our office for your student to come by and pick them up as well. I'd like to go ahead and look at the information on the left-hand side that we'll be looking at this evening. The stuff on the right-hand side will be referred to specifically by our speakers, but the left-hand information complements a lot of things we'll be looking at tonight. So the first three booklets you see are from Woodburn Press. One is called Getting the Most Out of High School. The second one is Preparing for College, a Guide for Parents. And then also How to Get Good Grades in 10 Easy Steps. So we would encourage you to take a look at these at a later time. As far as the handouts on the left side, you'll see our evaluation form. So you'd ask you to hand that out and either fill it out and either put it on your chair or leave it with one of the students in the back on the way out. Our freshman bulletin, which we'll be covering this week and next week with our freshman students when we visit their religion classes. You see our favorite college-related websites, which we try to keep updated every year with new and informative places to visit. You see our core GPA calculation sheet, and we'll be talking about that in great depth this evening. A sample of a resume of activities. And this is something, again, you'll hear us talk about tonight, encouraging your student to get involved in extracurricular activities. Outside of grades and test scores, colleges would like to see how you came to Bishop Kenny and made it a better place outside of the classroom. So building a strong resume can be a key thing as you get into your junior and especially your senior year when you are applying to college. Our academic support lab sheet. This information has been posted on Schoology for students, and it's also available for you to take a look at. If a student needs help in math or writing, we would strongly encourage them to visit these things in the afternoons. You can see the dates and times that they are available. We also have a great handout called The Most Successful Bishop Kenny Freshmen, and it's something that our academic team has put together over the years about students who are very successful in their freshman year at Bishop Kenny and what characteristics they seem to have. And then the last thing you'll see there is our Florida Trends Next magazine, which again, we would encourage you to go through. Has a lot of great information on college and being very successful in high school. As it says on the slide here, tonight is the first in a 4-part series. The 9th grade program is called the Success Seminar. In the 10th grade, we would encourage you to come back to our high school to college program. 11th grade is Planning for College, and 12th is Preparing for College. Each program is different and on itself. And like I said, we would strongly encourage you to come back each year as your student moves through their 4 years of high school. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Gamble, and she will be talking about our GPA calculation.
As Mr. Buckley said, my name is Siri Gamble, and I'm a counselor in the Bishop Kenny Office of School Counseling. Our students are alphabetized. Our students are assigned to their counselor alphabetically. So this enables us to have the same students the whole 4 years that they're here. So your student will remain with us the whole time during their high school career. As Mr. Buckley said, the counselors will begin doing classroom presentations this week on Thursday. We'll be going into all the different religion classes. We will begin meeting with our freshmen for their individual college readiness appointments in October. I would like to start out by emphasizing what you can accomplish and that all grades from the first day of freshman year count. Our school year is divided into 4 9-week quarters. These quarters are divided into 2 semesters. The first semester finishes right when we get out for Christmas break. To compute your final grade, we take each quarter and count each quarter grade twice, add in the midterm and the final, then divide by 10. The final grade for each class is the only grade that shows on the college transcript. We really emphasize that quarters are extremely important, and it really takes the heat off students who may not test as well. The next thing we'll talk about is the grade point average. So what we do, we take your numeric grade, like 85, 95, whatever the case may be, we turn that into a letter grade, okay? Then the letter grades are assigned point values. You get 4 points for an A, 3 points for a B, 2 points for a C, 1 for a D, 0 for an F, although I know no one in this group is going to be earning any grades below a C. And then you're assigned those particular point values. We add those all up, and then we divide that by the total number of classes that the student is taking, in which case here it's 7. We also add an extra half point for honors courses and an extra full point for any AP courses or advanced placement courses that the student takes. Then that is how we arrive at the cumulative GPA. And now I'd like to turn the program over to Mr. Buckley, and he's going to start talking to you all about the core academic GPA.
So as Mrs. Gamble mentioned, we have the cumulative GPA. Actually, if you look at handout number 2, you'll see how that's specifically laid out as far as how that's interpreted. So as she mentioned, you've got the letter grade that transfers into a numeric number. For example, for an A, it's 4.0. A half point for an honors class gives you a 4.5. And then if you're taking an advanced placement course in the sophomore year or later on, that gives you an additional weighted grade point average grade point, so it gets you up to a 5.0. And you can see how that calculates across the board for the cumulative GPA. Down at the bottom, you can see there's actually an example of how that cumulative GPA is calculated. So for example, in the freshman year for this student, he had a 92 in religion. That turns into an A. That's a college prep level class, so that's a 4.0. English 1 honors was an 89. That's a B plus, which equals a 3.5 because it's an honors class, because it gets an additional point there. And then you can see so on and so forth as it goes down, it adds those points up. So you can see, for example, the total cumulative points for this student at the end of his freshman year was 25.5. Divide that by a total of 7 classes. Again, cumulative GPA, meaning that we're using all classes that were taken in high school, and in this case, in the freshman year, and the student comes out with a 3.643 cumulative GPA. Now, if you would turn to handout number 3, we'll talk about the core GPA. So on the slide up in front of you, you can see the 5 core areas are English, math, science, social studies, and world language. So those are the key ones that are looked at by typically the state universities in Florida, the Bright Future Scholarship that we'll talk about tonight, as well as the National Collegiate Athletic Association, as far as being ready to play sports in college as well. So as far as the core GPA, it's actually calculated exactly the same way as the cum, just now you're using more specific courses. So if you take actually handout number 2 and number 3 and lay them next to each other, you'll see again, the scale up top is exactly the same, but down below, we're going to take this same student and pull out his core classes from his freshman year, which is 4 cores, which is typically most students take 4 core classes in the freshman year. If you're taking world geography right now, or possibly writing workshop, that counts as an additional core in either the social studies or the English departments. So for example here, this student had that same B plus in English 1 honors, so he gets a 3.5 on the green sheet number 3. For math, he had algebra 1, so that's a B, and that's a 3.0. In biology, he had an A, that's with a 91, so that's a 4.0. And then his Latin 4 grade, which was an 84, comes out to a 3.0 as a B as well. So now you take, instead of 7 classes, you're only using 4 courses. That total comes out to 13.5. Divide that again only by 4 core classes now, and that student's core GPA is a 3.375. So again, same student, 2 different GPAs. The CUME is a 3.643 and the core is a 3.375. And as you can see, that's pretty significant as far as the number. Usually we say most students' core GPAs are typically 2 to 3 tenths lower than their overall CUME. The CUME GPA is what is reported on the report card that you get from Bishop Kenny, because that shows all your classes. And again, we'll talk about how the core GPA is used as well. If you take a look at handout number 4, like I said, this is just an example of different organizations that will be focusing in on the core GPA as you get into your junior and senior year of high school. Number 1 is the state university system in Florida. As we know, there are excellent schools, University of Florida, Florida State, UCF, and so forth. We always like to make a disclaimer in the front. We're certainly not pushing students to those schools. We want you to look at all different schools, both public and private, in and out of the state of Florida. But we know, obviously, because of great schools, because of bright futures, because of pretty good tuition rates, a lot of students do look to go to our state university schools. So again, they're going to be focused in on that core GPA. So that's why, obviously, we like to highlight that. In the middle of the sheet, you'll see the Florida Bright Future Scholarship Program, another organization that hones in on the core. Mr. Broach will give you some more details about that this evening. But as Mrs. Gamble said in the beginning, everything you do from your freshman year counts. So what we always like to emphasize is that your grade in your English 1 class counts just as much for Bright Futures and for college as your grade in your English 4 class in your senior year. So that's why it's very important to get off to a great start. And that's why we're excited to see a great turnout here tonight. And then finally, as I mentioned, for the NCAA, again, if you have aspirations of playing sports in college, know they also will evaluate your grades and test scores as well. Okay, as speaking of those grades, as Mrs. Gamble said, you'll have a numeric grade, numeric average in your class, in each of your classes at the end of, let's say, your first quarter. And let's talk about how you would make the honor roll at Bishop Kenny. They're going to take that final average in all of your classes at the end of the first quarter. So let's say you have a 93 in religion, you have a 95 in your Hope PE class, and so forth. They'll take that average. If your average is 94 and above, that would be considered first honors. If it's 83 to 93.99, that's considered second honors. As it says there, you can have no letter grade on your average at the end of the quarter below an 80 in any of your classes. If you receive the honor roll each quarter of a certain school year, you will receive an academic letter the following year. And as I mentioned, you'll be recognized at the award ceremony. The other great incentive is if you get honor, if you achieve the honor roll all 4 quarters of every year of high school, so 16 times in a row, which we have a good number of students that do that, you'll receive a special recognition at the end of the year when you graduate in your senior year. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. Another great thing to be shooting for is a National Honor Society. As it says there, they're looking for students with outstanding scholarship, leadership, integrity, and so forth. You are eligible for the National Honor Society after the first semester of your junior year. As you can see, that is tied into your actual cumulative GPA. So we talked about numerical averages for honor roll. Honor Society is based on the grade point average. As you can see, a 4.0 there. You are invited to apply, and then they will also review your overall record, behavior, leadership, like I said, and so forth. And you'll be invited after the first semester of your junior year. If you don't quite have a 4.0 at that point, and you do have it after the first semester of your senior year, you will also be invited to apply at that time as well. And then finally, again, we're looking a long way away, but set high goals for yourself as far as graduating with honors. Again, they will use your cumulative GPA at the completion of your senior year. In order to graduate summa cum laude, you will be a 4.0, 3.6 to 3.9 for magna, and then 3.3 to 3.59 for graduating cum laude. So we certainly encourage, again, our students to set that goal right now. Today was day 5 of your freshman year. So you have a lot of time in front of you, but you want to set those goals high and get off to a great start, like he said, and go from there. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Broach, and he'll be talking about graduation requirements and standardized testing.
Good evening. So I'll pick up with graduation requirements. So for 4 years at Bishop Kenny High School, to earn a Bishop Kenny diploma in May or June of 2025, students must complete successfully 4 credits in religion. Obviously, as a Catholic school, that's very important to us. 4 credits in English, 4 credits in math in grades 9 through 12. So I make that point is if you have taken a math credit in middle school, for students who are placed in geometry or geometry honors, we would reflect that algebra credit on the transcript, but it doesn't count within that grades 9 through 12 clock. So it's really important that we have 4 credits in math in grades 9 through 12. Also, one thing that we have heard from the colleges is that it's important to see students finishing through math every single year, all the way through senior year, because there is an expectation of math in college. 3 credits in social science or social studies. So students right now, you're in the health education or fitness or the ROTC to fulfill, notice it says 1 credit in health education. All of you are in that right now. Social studies would then pick up next year in 10th, 11th, and 12th. So if you'll notice on handout number 6, this is the 4-year plan. You can already start to map out these courses. So again, 3 credits in social studies, that's world history, US history, and US government economics, 10th, 11th, and 12th. 3 credits in science. So biology is the 1 required course of every student. So every student at Bishop Kenny takes biology, and it typically in the freshman year, unless it's obviously a case of a student transferring. So after biology, there's a plethora of choices. Only 3 credits are required. I will say, though, that many of our students will go on and take 4 years of a science. So you'll notice how that block opens up in grade 12, but there are many colleges that may want to see that 4th science. So kind of keep that in mind. 2 credits of a world language are required. So if you're in Latin 1, Spanish 1, or German 1, you would need to go on and finish the 2nd level course next year. So it's 2 credits in world language in the same language. And of course, some students do go on and do 4 years of a language. I've already mentioned the health education or fitness, and then 1 practical or performing art. So for many of our students, you may already be fulfilling that with your elective right now, but if you're not, so let's say, for example, if you're in world geography or writing workshop right now, you would need to make sure that you fit in a practical or performing arts elective, either in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade to meet that graduation requirement, and then 6 other electives. So in total, 28 credits in 4 years. That's 7 classes a year over 4 years, 28 credits. Okay. A few other things for graduation requirements. 25 hours of community service per year are required, or Christian service per year required. If you have completed hours during the summer, your religion teachers will be speaking to you, if they haven't already, about X2 Vol, which is our community service tracking program. You want to submit those hours for verification prior to Labor Day if they were done in the summer. Otherwise, hours for this school year need to be done by the end of the 3rd quarter. They need to be recorded and verified by the end of the 3rd quarter. And the last point about this is students must have a minimum of a 2.0 cumulative GPA. So Mrs. Gamble explained an A is a 4.0, a B is a 3.0, a C is a 2.0. Now a D, which is a 1.0, technically is passing. A student can pass a class with a D. The lowest possible D is a 60. But students, 1, we don't want you passing your classes with Ds. We want you to earn higher, of course. But a student who earns mostly Ds and that GPA, that cumulative GPA, falls below a 2.0, well, then they're in danger of not graduating. So even if a senior passes all 28 classes, but the GPA is below a 2.0, that senior student will not graduate with a Bishop Kenny diploma on time. So it's very, very important to keep in mind, it's not just passing all 28 courses, but also the 2.0 GPA. Now, all of this is going to be explained in the freshman college readiness appointment. The school counselors do a great job with these appointments. So for our 9th grade students, this process will start at the end of the first quarter and continue through the beginning of the second quarter. And I like to equate this to students. How many of you go for the annual visit to the doctor? Okay, only 2 people raised hands. Oh, come on, guys. Has it been that long of a day? All right. So just like you go for your annual wellness checkup, the college readiness appointment is kind of the same idea. You will have an annual appointment with your counselor, and there's a checklist of things that the counselor will go through to make sure that you're on track to find success at Bishop Kenny, but also to succeed and reach that Bishop Kenny diploma and your college goals. That appointment is just the minimum. So students, if you feel like you need more than that one appointment with your counselor, you can make that appointment. You are welcome, just like you can call your doctor anytime, you can reach out to your counselor anytime and make an appointment in the office of school counseling to meet with your counselor. Your counselor, you met Mrs. Gamble, whose last name's L through Q, your counselor will follow you all 4 years. So that person is really your advocate. He or she is guiding you from your start now here at Bishop Kenny all the way through your 28 classes, through recommendations and deciding what colleges to apply to, getting those applications in, making sure that you're registering for the SAT and ACT, everything you need to have in place so that when you walk out of here with a Bishop Kenny diploma, you are ready for the next level. Okay. Next, I mentioned already the 4-year education plan, but let me go back to that handout. This is handout number 6. So I would highly, highly encourage each of you. You can find this, you have the handout in your packet, but also it's in the back of the course catalog, which you can also find online. So if you need another copy, this is something your counselor will go over with you in that college readiness appointment. It is wonderful to dream now. So if you think about the courses that you're in right now, consider what courses, where do I want to be maybe next year and the year after, and you can go ahead and start filling out this worksheet, and this is good for talking points with your counselor. So if you'll notice at the top, of course, it says minimum 2.0 GPA and 28 credits, and notice it also says 18 academic units. You will automatically be in 16 academic courses just following our graduation requirements. So you want to make sure that you also add 2 electives, which are from one of those 5 academic core areas. Does that make sense? I see some heads nodding. Good. All right. As well as the 25 hours per year. So we encourage you, again, some colleges want to see you doing a few more of those academic core courses. So take a look at that course catalog, look at the offerings, start planning where you might want to plug those classes in. Definitely, as you look at the course catalog, check for unique requirements. Some courses, especially at the honors and AP level, have prerequisites. A prerequisite means you have to be in a particular course first before you can register for that next class. Course requests then happen at the end of the 3rd quarter. So let me explain how that process works. So students, we've talked about how we calculate grades, right? Everything is year-end grading. So you have your 4 quarters, your midterm, and your final. That makes your final course grade. Your final course grade is the only thing that colleges will see on the transcript. After the 1st and 2nd quarter in the midterm exam in January, your 2nd quarter report card will have a semester average. So it will be an average of the first 2 quarters in the midterm. Then at the end of the 3rd quarter, you'll have what's called a year-to-date average. That year-to-date average is just showing you where your average is in that course for 3 quarters plus the midterm. We will use that grade to determine your qualifications for honors or AP level coursework. Then once the 3rd quarter is over, you're going to hear from your teachers about requesting your courses for next year. Mrs. Bradley, our new academic dean, is going to say a few words about placement. As some of you know, I was the academic dean the last 5 years. I've now transitioned to the vice principal's role. I'm very excited Mrs. Bradley is now stepping in as academic dean. In my previous position, I placed all of you in your English, math, and science courses based on high school placement test scores, Terra Nova scores, or other standardized scores, grades from 8th grade, teacher recommendations. That's the only time the school will place you in classes. So you get to choose your classes going forward, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So at the end of this year's third quarter, you will select your courses. And if, let's say you're at a college prep level course and you want to move up to honors, you will do so based on the grades you have in your current courses and that cumulative GPA. So that all happens at the end of the third quarter. So definitely take a look at the course catalog, look at the honors and AP criteria for moving up. Also know that we have summer school opportunities. We have students who take summer school, and actually, would you mind advancing the slide for the folks at home? Thank you. We have summer school courses in social studies, world history, US history, and government economics. We have students who will come in the summer and they'll take world history between the freshman and sophomore year to maybe take an extra course sophomore year or to have an extra elective sophomore year. So that's an option that you have for you. Next, I'd like to discuss standardized testing, and that's this handout number 7 that has the standardized testing program and the dates. Every Bishop Kenny student will take the PSAT. So students in October, you will take the PSAT. In 9th grade, you'll take it again in 10th grade in October. It's a school day test. And in 11th grade, that PSAT is the PSAT NMSQT, which stands for National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. I want you to know that you will actually be hearing more about this in your English and math classes in particular pretty soon if you haven't already, because we'll be preparing you for these tests via Khan Academy, as well as some of our classes are using a platform called UWorld. We do the PSAT to help prepare you for the standardized testing that you will need for college admissions. So if we backtrack, just like you took the high school placement tests, which placed you in your courses at Bishop Kenny, colleges use the SAT and ACT, or a combination of the two, to determine admission as well as placement at the college level. Okay. There's also AP exams. You'll see that information. AP courses, there's a few available 10th grade year. The majority of our 24 AP courses are available junior and senior year, and those all come with a test which validates the student's performance in the course. Students, if you earn a passing score on one of those AP exams, that equates to college credit. In fact, here in the state of Florida, in those state university system schools, it's actually state law that a student who earns a 4 or a 5, which are the top 2 scores on the AP scale, actually equal a particular course code at the state university system level. So I've been an AP teacher for the last 18 years, and I've had a lot of my graduates who have had multiple APs, and they've jumped from freshman to junior year at UF or FSU, other state schools, just from those AP credits. Okay. So obviously the SAT, we highly, highly recommend that you complete 2 SATs by June of 11th grade. Remember, students, between your 11th and 12th grade year, you'll be applying for college, so you already want to have some of those tests under your belt. As well as the ACT, we would recommend that as well, completing 2 by June of 11th grade, and then maybe retesting SAT and ACT or both in the senior year. And then lastly, CLEP is not a test that we offer here at Bishop Kenny, but just to plant the seed now, you don't need to worry about it until a few years down the road. But CLEP testing is also available in order to CLEP out of certain courses in college, colleges that accept the CLEP testing. So it's a way that maybe you excelled in a particular discipline here at Bishop Kenny. You could go take a CLEP test, which might allow you to accelerate a little further when you get to college. And again, you'll be hearing more about that in your college readiness appointments each year as you move along. So I mentioned, again, the preparation for these college entrance exams. The most important piece of preparation is taking rigorous college prep courses. You will have that at Bishop Kenny. Our curriculum is designed to prepare you with the skills to do well on those exams. We highly, highly encourage you to read as much as possible and to write as much as possible. Now I know the writing will be infused in a lot of what you do. As I'm looking at Mrs. Bradley, who teaches English 1, it starts pretty early. But students, reading, not just reading for class, but reading outside of class. That's an important skill because not only is critical reading on the SAT and ACT, but that's an important skill in college that we try to build in very, very early. So again, our hope is that when you get to college, those first 2 years, you'll have the same experience I did at the University of North Florida many, many, many years ago when I said, wow, this is easier than Bishop Kenny. Become familiar with test instructions. So students, I mentioned the PSAT in October. In January, we receive your scores for the PSAT, and we will come to your classrooms and give you the actual test book that you used in October and an item analysis that showed what you answered, what the correct answers were, and what skills to practice. That is a great way of practicing and becoming familiar. I can tell you from all my years of teaching AP, the more familiar students become with the test, the more comfortable they become with the test, and it reduces all of that standardized testing anxiety. So that's something you'll be hearing a lot in the next few years, especially as we move up to junior and senior year. And as I mentioned, practicing on Khan Academy, some of the classes will be using UWorld. Math in particular, some AP courses will use that platform as well, but you can always take free SAT and ACT practice tests online. A little bit more about Khan Academy. This is introduced in 9th and 10th grades in all English classes. That's where students enroll in Khan Academy. It's through English, but they'll also use a little bit of that in math. Plus other disciplines are welcome to use it as well. It's not just the SAT prep, but Khan Academy is such a helpful resource in many disciplines. So students, how many of you use Khan Academy for math help? Yes, few of you say that, right? Khan Academy can be very, very helpful for math, just if you need to hear it a different way. So you heard the lesson in class, but a little foggy about that concept, go watch it again in Khan Academy. Sometimes that different explanation can be helpful to you. What's nice about getting back to the standardized test scores is that when you get your PSAT results in January, there's a code on your score report that you link to your Khan Academy, and then Khan Academy will tailor videos and practice questions based on the areas you need the most work in. So again, why we like that. The last thing about SAT and ACT is all of this information you can find in our parent-student handbook in the school counseling section. Also on our website. Do know that we offer some of these tests here at Bishop Kenny, so we highly encourage Bishop Kenny students to take the test here when it's offered, but it's also offered at other times at other test centers. I already mentioned we recommend taking the SAT twice and the ACT twice by the end of the junior year. Most colleges do what's called super scoring. So super scoring is they'll take either SAT or ACT, they'll look at your best math score and your best reading and writing score in SAT and put the two together. So let's say one SAT in June, you do really well in math, but maybe not so great on the reading and writing. That best score in math is what the colleges will look at. And then maybe in October, you take it again and you get your best score in reading and writing. Colleges will look at those two scores. All of that information, again, in the Office of School Counseling. A few other things that I want to mention, again, just forward thinking, giving you the information now as you begin your high school experience, is the Florida Bright Futures Scholarship Program. We have been very fortunate that, I don't have the numbers on the 2021 class, but on 2020, over half the class earned some level of the Florida Bright Futures Scholarship. That is a really high number. And so, we're very proud of it. That means that over half of the senior class in 2020 had the requisite SAT and ACT scores, they had the GPA, they had the community service to qualify for either 75% or 100%. So that's something really, I can see some of the parents looking at their kids going, yes, I want that, right? To help pay for college. So definitely keep that on the horizon. The Florida Bright Future Scholarship is renewable for 4 years, and there's a 5-year eligibility period. So we knew at the time of graduation this past May who was already qualified, but we also had students that were being reevaluated after graduation. So keep that in mind. The next thing I want to share, getting away from testing and scores and graduation, because I can see you're like, I just want to focus on ninth grade, right? I highly, highly encourage you to get involved in extracurricular activities. Now, the first bullet, of course, mentions colleges will use a holistic review of applications. So colleges look at the big picture of students. It's not all about grades and test scores. They're going to look at what else that you're doing. Some of those very highly competitive schools in the Northeast, they're going to look at what makes you unique out of all the students with these high grades and high scores. But more importantly, getting involved on campus helps to give you the full experience of being a Bishop Kenny student. High school, 4 years of high school is not just about going to class, getting grades, and going home. It's about really enjoying the whole experience. I know parents might, think back to their high school days or when they go to high school reunions. That's where you make a lot of the friendships and those bonds and connections, which makes the high school year so special, or doing all those things outside of class, going to activities, getting involved in clubs, doing service organizations. By the way, I mentioned the 25 community service hours per year. If you join a service club, you'll easily meet those hours. So there are lots and lots of opportunities here on campus. Over 40 clubs and organizations, multiple sports teams. That is the beauty of a school our size, that there really is something for everyone here to get involved and be connected. We want you to be part of that family. And then lastly, I just want to emphasize, as we think about the freshman year, and this is my transition to Mrs. Bradley, that from the first day of school last Wednesday until you graduate in May or June of 2025, whenever that date is set, everything matters and everything counts. For many of you, you spent either the last 3 years in a middle school or you spent the last 9, 10, 11 years in the same Catholic school, right? So you've been in one school on one train with one set of expectations. Now you've changed to a new school with a different set of expectations. So the way that you earn grades in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is going to look a little bit different in high school. The expectations are a little bit different. You'll hear a lot, we say that our motto is preparing minds, hearts, and souls for college and life. Really, the whole Bishop Kenny experience is designed for creating the whole person. I've just mentioned a lot about grades and test scores, and you're going to hear more things about grades and placement, but let me emphasize this. Obviously, grades are important. As the vice principal, I have to say that. But what's more important is you as an individual. Your worth, your dignity, your character, your integrity, all of those traits, that's what you take with you. So I want to just remind you, students, that you're not defined by a number. There is sometimes especially now in our online world, an urge somewhat for students to check grades all the time, to constantly, I've seen it teaching AP kids every hour, refreshing to look for grade changes. I encourage you to take a step back and look at grades as just one piece, right? Your current grade in a class, all it does is reflect where you are at this point. So let me give you an example. If you take a test and you study for that test and you come out and I didn't quite get the grade I wanted, it's not the end of the world. As Mrs. Gamble mentioned about grade calculations, we have 4 quarters and midterm and final, all of those factors that lead to the final course average. There is always room for improvement. So I recommend that you take a look at your grades and say, okay, I didn't get the grade that I wanted. What can I do differently to maybe move up to the next level? What can I do differently to change that? But even if you get a grade that is maybe a little disappointing, it doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. It just means we have to take a little bit of a different approach. And if you're having a hard time finding what that approach should be, that's when you go to see your teacher. That's when you go to see your counselor, because we're all here to help you. But don't let that cloud of a grade hang over you, because you're worth more than just a grade in the grade book, right? So that's why I encourage to go to daily mass, get involved in activities, get involved in athletics, get to meet friends, embrace the whole high school experience. Our philosophy here, of course, is to prepare you with the knowledge, the skills, the work ethic, so that you can be successful in the future, not just getting you into college, because if it was all just about getting you admitted to college, we would do nothing but test prep and get you the SAT and ACT scores. We want to build you with the skills and the resiliency so that when you go on to college, you can thrive, be successful, be independent, right? I'm a parent too, so I know some of the parents are like, yes, be independent, right? 4 years from now, right? Those are the types of things that we want to prepare you for. So kind of sticking with that thread of grades and ways to find success and thrive at Bishop Kenny, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Ashley Bradley, who is our academic dean. As I mentioned, she's just come into this role. I am thrilled to have her replacing me in this role. She is a master teacher, a former school administrator, has taught freshman English here for the last 4 or 5 years, and is also, like me, a Bishop Kenny graduate. And so I'll turn it on to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Broach. As Mr. Broach mentioned, the incoming 9th graders are placed into English, math, and science based on a set of criteria. So we do that based on the high school placement test scores, but we also look at the standardized test scores, the Terranova test. We take into consideration the 8th grade teacher recommendations. And we also look at their current grade coming in when the evaluations come in. So we have this placement system in place. It's very important that we place you in the correct class. So that's our goal, is just to, as Mr. Broach said, that's the only time that we're going to place you. But that doesn't mean that that's the end all be all. Having taught both college prep as well as honors, I can assure you that the college prep courses are rigorous enough and they challenge students. But at the same time, it also gives those students who are looking to move into those honors courses the opportunity to do that. So just, keep that in mind. It's just a starting point, but as Mr. Broach said, it's the opportunity for you to, choose your courses the following year. So as a student in a college prep course, speaking of moving from honors or from college prep to honors, if you earn a 95, so when we get to that point and we're ready to do course requests, if you have a 95 average and a 3.5 GPA, you can move directly into an honors course. So again, it's just a starting point and you have the opportunity to make that change. If you are an honors student, you need to maintain an 85 average in order to stay in honors. So those are the criteria that we set. If you are close to that criteria but didn't quite reach it, there is an opportunity for you at the end of that 3rd quarter to ask for a waiver and to be granted a waiver request conference. And so that's just something to think about. And that's the time that you'll meet with the academic deans or the vice principal of academics or one of your school counselors in order to determine, what is the best placement for you moving forward. As for what you are learning in your classes, it is really important to understand that information alone is not knowledge. In fact, I heard recently at a banquet that, it's not that knowledge is power, it's what you do with that knowledge that equates to power. And so as a college prep school, our courses are designed to help students learn to think critically. And I know I see some of my honor students out there, I've already been talking a lot about that. So I know all teachers are at this point, but we teach you how to think critically. And our expectations are higher here as we believe there's an appropriate level of rigor that we set for our students. Again, to help develop the skills necessary for future success. So we're not just teaching you, we are preparing you, we are forming you, not just in the faith, but in the areas of life where you can be most successful. I also advise you to look at what you're learning in a wider context. In fact, I was talking about that today with my students. I said, what we're learning in here isn't just something that we're going to do in here. I want you to see how you can apply it in other areas. So, being the academic dean, but also teaching kind of gives me that perspective of the classroom. So, it's just something to think about is how is what I'm learning right here, can it be applied to a wider, in a wider context? And think about it in terms of your future career. I mean, now is the time to start thinking about what decisions can I make now so that it will pave the way for my future. So I just want to say a few words regarding math. Math can actually be one of the most challenging disciplines in high school, especially here. We hold higher standards for math because we know that it prepares students for the expectations of the SAT and the ACT math sections and the math coursework that is required for the first 2 years of college. Now, math takes consistent practice, right? And so you want to make sure, students, that one way to know whether or not you have truly mastered a concept is if you are able to teach and explain it to someone else. So this is why we're doing this is why you should be doing your homework, and as well as looking over those formulas that you're learning. It's not just enough to sit in the classroom and try to absorb material. You actually have to go home and practice daily. So you'll find that in your math courses, you're going to have probably daily homework. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. That's practice, so that it will prepare you for the big game, which would be those assessments that you're going to take, and then ultimately the SAT or the ACT. And you want to think about that. Practice makes perfect. We also have math lab supports on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 2:45 to 3:30 in the Dimitri Learning Commons. So we have excellent math teachers who are staffing these labs, and they're there to help students who might just be struggling. Sometimes students go in there just to do homework and have somebody there just in case they have a question. We also have a writing lab for students on Tuesdays from 2:45 to 3:30, also in the Dimitri Learning Commons. Again, it is staffed by English teachers. I actually work it sometimes, so you might see me in there from time to time. But it's a service that we offer students so that they can excel in the areas of math and writing. Okay. Now let's discuss grades. I think yesterday you should have received an email from Mrs. Alento regarding the opening of the grade portal, which will occur on next Monday. Parents, this is your window to check on your child's progress. Students, this is also your tool that you can use to track your own and monitor your own progress. We no longer mail home report cards until the end of the year. So you'll want to make sure that you have saved your FACS login right there on your computer. Students, we encourage you to check your grades at least once a week. Notice that I said once a week, not necessarily every day or every hour. Once a week is sufficient, just so that you can kind of keep track of your progress. It's great because teachers are required to update once a week, and that's a great way if you see that something was, maybe you were absent and you need to complete some makeup work. That's going to be the way that you can kind of keep track of that, in addition to your plan or anything else that you might have. So about 2 to 3 times, parents should really be checking those the grades about, about 2 to 3 times a quarter. That's a great way. So we have students who are checking it weekly, parents checking it 2 to 3 times a quarter. But keep in mind that, again, as we begin this year, the grades aren't going to start really building up until maybe midway through the quarter. So, just kind of keep that in mind, is that those first few grades sometimes shock students, because we don't have much in there. So allow time for that grade book to build up. But about 2 to 3 weeks after the start of each quarter is when you should really start checking those grades. So just give it a little bit of time before you start checking. Yes, the grades are important, but we want to make sure that it's just a measurement of where you're at. So again, as Mr. Broach said, it's the number doesn't define you. It gives us a way to measure your progress. And so I'll be talking a little bit about growth mindset and how you just use that as an opportunity to learn. And if you get a grade that you don't particularly are proud of, or you think you can do better, then you want to figure out what you did and try to change that moving forward. As I said, parents, we recommend that you check about two to three times a quarter, especially around mid-quarter or progress check days. Of course, if you feel like you need to monitor your child more closely, then you certainly are encouraged to do so. But again, we want to monitor for accountability and work ethic. The policies are up. Our policy for teachers is, again, to update weekly. However, there can be a delay, for example, in math or even in English. So for example, if your child wrote a paper, we do allow our teachers more time to grade that paper versus maybe a minor quiz. So just kind of keep that in mind. As for communication, one of the great luxuries that we have at the school is very caring parents, right? So in our mission statement, we state that we will partner with you. So we see parents as the primary educators, and we're there to support you in the education of your child. So please feel free to reach out to us anytime and give us information that you think would be helpful for us. I can tell you as a teacher, I really do appreciate that. So again, the door is always open. If you could also reach out to your child's counselor, again, as Mr. Broach said, they are a way to advocate, they're there as your child's advocate. However, I will tell you that one of the biggest differences in high school versus grade school is that we really try to encourage the students to self-advocate and to come and speak to us. In fact, I would prefer students to do that. So if you're struggling, let's try to develop that relationship between the parent and the student, between the student and the teacher, and we'll start there. And if we're still struggling, then again, I'm a parent. If I need to, I can step in and get involved. But I do encourage my own children, I do have 5 of them, to go and talk to their teachers themselves. But so that would be your first line, students. Come and talk to your teachers, okay? They're always willing to help you and they're there for you. So now that you're in high school, students, you are responsible for your education. So the decisions that you make are going to directly affect the outcome. Mom and dad, they did their time, right? They did all the homework. Now it's your turn, okay? So again, I can speak as a parent, a teacher, and even a former student, right? This is your opportunity right here. So you want to make sure that you're on top of your homework, that you're using a planner, that you're doing everything that you possibly can to stay organized in your classes so that you can be in control. It's sort of like riding a bike, right? You've got your parents who are there helping you, holding onto the bike, but eventually they've got to let go and you've got to take control. So you want to think about that. Now, parents, as you listen to your children and you identify the concerns or the questions that they might have, we encourage please encourage your child to communicate with their teachers.
Section 2, so that way when you go to class the next day, you kind of have an idea of what he or she might be talking about. This will often help you understand concepts that are taught later. Prepare study materials in advance. Again, you figure out what works for you. Notecards might work for some students. Creating an outline might work for some students. Again, you might want to think about that. Or there might be online resources like Quizlet that you might want to consider. There's a plethora of resources out there. Or if worst comes to worst, you develop your own. You have to figure out what's going to work for you. So it could be making index cards, or like I said, going to Quizlet. But the bottom line is you need to do those little things every single day, every single week, rather than wait until the end and try to cram. I can assure you that doesn't work. Okay, it won't work. One of the common reflections we hear from 9th grade students is that they have to work much harder to achieve success. That's not a bad thing. In fact, one thing I told my students, I think it was last week in class, is when you're struggling, you're actually learning. If you get a class and it's so easy, then there's something wrong. You should actually have to work. It's like going to the gym, right? And lift. So my students that I had, they know what I'm talking about. We're talking about, you go and you lift weights. Again, if you're lifting the same weight, then you're not really going to do much for your muscle mass. But if you change what you're doing, if you increase weight, you intensify it, then it's going to build your muscles up. And the same thing is true for learning. You actually have to work, and at times you have to struggle. Not that struggling to the point where you don't understand it, but struggling enough so that it's taking you time to learn it. It's not coming to you. Not to say that some concepts can't, but if it's too easy for you, then you're not in the right box, and you need to challenge, or you need to challenge yourself more. Okay? So you want to think about that. Something else, as I mentioned earlier, is self-advocacy. That brings us to our third trait. As I mentioned before, the first line of communication is always between the student and the teacher. If you find class to be challenging, go see the teacher. Make an appointment or send an email or a Schoology message to your teacher asking for their time. Don't ever be afraid to reach out to your teachers. They will absolutely help you. Even if a teacher may seem tough or strict, and I assure you, I've got that reputation, we are always there to help students. We want you to come and see us. Once you sit down one-on-one with a teacher, you might find that that was really a good decision for you to make. Also, remember that our teachers have many students. So if you take the time to see your teacher before after school, that really does go a long way in building that relationship and that positive rapport with your teacher. I can tell you as a teacher myself that there are times when you might feel overwhelmed. There are times when we teachers feel overwhelmed. And sometimes you just might need a little bit of clarification. And just like we would go to our principal or go to somebody in administration, like that would be the time that you might go and see your teacher. So everybody sometimes needs to have help, not just students. Sometimes adults need the same thing. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. In fact, that's the way to learn. Let me say something about tutors, just in case anybody's wondering. There are some really great tutors in Jacksonville. And if you are looking for one, if you feel like you need one, because maybe you're struggling too much, you might need a little bit more mediation, please reach out to the Office of School Counseling. They can also refer someone to you. However, parents, before you go and invest in tutors, keep in mind that we do have math labs, writing labs available, teachers are present. So just keep that in mind. We do have resources on campus, but if you feel as though you've exhausted all of those opportunities and you need a little something more, then again, don't hesitate to reach out and ask for more help. If you do feel it is necessary to have an outside tutor, I highly recommend that you put that tutor in communication with the teacher, okay? So there's a special release form that you would need to sign, so you can obtain that from your child's counselor. But having that communication between the teacher and tutor would be really, really valuable and important. One of the last things I want to talk about is growth mindset. This is a concept that I know I talked about with my students last week, but it's something that we highly encourage students is to develop a growth mindset and not have that fixed mindset. So at this stage in your life, we refer to this as new infancy because every experience you have is developing a new pathway in your brain. And, you know, as your brain continues to grow, as you have these experiences, it creates memory, it creates long-term working memory, then it becomes long-term memory. And so that's really, really important that you understand how your brain works.
So that over the course of these 4 years, and as you take these 28 courses, you know, you might come to realize that there might be times where you might say, there's no way I can do this, but what you have to do is put your mind to it and have that growth mindset of understanding that you can grow your intelligence just like you can grow your muscles. It's true that you can do that. So you don't want to have the mentality of, I can't do this. You want to look at a hurdle that you might have, a class or a particular concept, and say, okay, what do I need to do to dig down and learn it? And you can do that. And so I'm going to encourage you to change those I can't statements into I just can't do it yet, but I'll get there. I just got a little bit more time, a little bit more effort. I'll get there. Remember, you might be able to accomplish a task or you might not be able to accomplish it or understand it right now, but if you work hard and you put in the effort, you will eventually overcome that hurdle. You know, sometimes I hear people tell me, especially being an English teacher, that I'm just not good at grammar. I just don't get it. Well, anybody can understand grammar, just like they can understand math. It just takes time and effort, and it might take a different explanation, but everybody has the potential to learn it. Again, are you going to put your mind to it? As a fixed mindset would say, I always get a C or lower on essays, so I'm just not a good writer. But a growth mindset would actually celebrate the little successes, and you see those as opportunities for growth, right? So if you get a grade that, as I said earlier, that isn't quite what you wanted, then you might want to think about how you can approach that differently. Go talk to your teacher, find a different study strategy. There are ways, it sort of goes back to that old adage, where there's a will, there's an A. I think there was a program, right? Where there's a will, there's an A. And so you just have to think about how you want to achieve, and you absolutely will. I want you to see learning as a growth experience, not as something that's going to define you. As Mr. Birch said, you're not a number, right? You're not just a GPA. Reflect on what you're learning in your classes. Get excited about it, right? I love it when the light bulbs go off in my students' heads. I mean, those are the moments that I live for right there. When my students are like, oh, I get it, right? I mean, that's why I became an educator. This is also why I want to caution you about checking your grades too much, because when you do that, you might become obsessed. And then you might be focused on that grade, and that's all that you can see, rather than, okay, I'm going to look at this and see how I can improve from here. Every stumble is a learning experience, and having the right attitude, right, is the approach that's going to help you find success. So here's the new mantra, right? Failure, and whatever failure is for you, because it's a relative term. Teaching honors, some students might look at failure as being a 95, believe it or not, right? But failure, whatever you define failure as, is an opportunity for growth. So think about that. Failure is just an opportunity for growth. That's what I tell my students. Remember, the more you face in your challenges and you can overcome your obstacles, the more resilient you will become. And that is true for in the classroom, on the court, you know, whatever it is in life. Resiliency is very important. And having that positive growth mindset will help you to be happy and more fruitful. And I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Buckley again.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradley. Just a couple handouts I want to refer to as we wrap up. First one is handout number 5, which was our Bishop Kenny transcript. Just so you know, eventually when our students apply to college, this is the transcript that gets sent, whether it be to a private school, public school, in-state, out-of-state. It's the same document, so you can see the students' classes from 9th through 11th grade. Eventually, when they're seniors, they will have their senior schedule listed on there, as well as their cumulative GPA that we talked about earlier tonight, their class rank, their overall service hours. And then even, for example, for this student who's an example of a senior this year, you see that 8th grade math is listed on there, like we talked about earlier this evening. The other handout was handout number 9. As Mr. Broach said, we strongly encourage you to get involved in things outside of the classroom here, in the classroom here at Bishop Kenny. So you've got the handout here with the organizations, all of our clubs and activities. So we would strongly encourage our students to get involved in things in 9th grade, maybe get involved in a club and eventually establish some sort of leadership position as a junior or possibly a senior. So again, the colleges can see what you're involved in. And again, we find the students that are more involved have a much better high school experience and actually do better academically because they're more focused on time management and that sort of thing. So we certainly encourage that as well. As far as our office and school counseling, working with you throughout your 4 years of high school, as Mrs. Gamble mentioned earlier, we're going to have our classroom presentations this week and next week for all of our grade levels. So we'll be providing you a packet for your iPad that you'll take home. You can take a look at that. We will have our annual college readiness appointments that we talked about late first quarter and through the beginning of the second quarter with our freshman students. Our additional appointments, anytime you need one before or after that, you're always welcome to come in and see us. Annual parent seminars like the one we have tonight, we talked about, there's a total of 4 over your 4 years of high school. There's actually a 5th, which is a financial aid program we have for juniors and senior parents as you're getting ready to thinking about paying for college. And then finally, Navient Student, which is a web-based program that all of our freshmen will be trained on in their first year appointment this year. And that's something you'll carry through
I'm gonna leave them undone back
college, but also as far as career research, college majors and that type of thing. We certainly strongly encourage them to take a good look at that throughout their 4 years of high school. And you will actually receive an email as a parent once your counselor meets with your student this year, just to kind of run down the things that we covered. Little pitch for our Crusader yearbook. You can order one online. The regular deadline for the regular price deadline is October 30th. So we encourage you to do that. And again, you can see where that's listed there. And then finally, we really appreciate you coming out tonight and those of you that watched online as well. I'd like to thank our student government students that were here this evening. We certainly appreciate them. We made plenty of packets. So if you'd like to take an extra one, take one for anybody that's not here tonight. And if you are watching online, you certainly can send your students by tomorrow or the rest of the week, and we'll provide them as well. Our speakers will be available for any questions that you have afterwards. And again, we appreciate the class of 2025. We're looking forward to a great next 4 years. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all for joining us online tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to email your school counselor or give the Office of School Counseling a call. And I apologize for the internet interruption there at the end, towards the end, but we will have a video recording available. And of course, any other information we will share with you. And have a great night. Thanks for joining.